How will Pike and his crew finish off the season? Let's dig in and find out. Welcome back, TV junkies. Or, if we're meeting for the first time, my name is Sean Redmond. This is Sean's Take, and this is the home of the high-quality television superfans known as the Telefosi. And all you got to do to join is watch one of our videos. Here we go. Strange New Worlds Season 2 has really been fantastic. It's had a little bit of everything for everybody. Some of the episodes have been lighthearted. We've had courtroom dramas. We've had heart-wrenching time travel episodes. We've had a musical. We've had a cartoon crossover. And now we're here at the end and we have a little bit of horror. The reimagined Gorn. For the most part, I like this episode a lot, and there's a couple of things I have an issue with. We'll get to the things I have an issue with, but for right now, this is your spoiler warning. I'll assume from this point on, you've either seen the episode or don't mind if I reveal details. Also, I will be using clips from the show as provided under the fair use provision of the Copyright Act of 1976. So let's unpack. We start off with the USS Cayuga under the command of Captain Batel, administering inoculations to colonists just outside of Federation space. Nurse Chapel, who's hitching a ride on the Cayuga to get to her internship, is helping with this. I don't know, they didn't explain why a Federation vessel was outside of Federation space, but they were. They get done with the inoculations. Chapel beams back to the Cayuga, and the system is invaded, for lack of a better term, by the Gorn. And the Gorn use a dampening device that stops communication and transporters. So the people on the ground are trapped. People on the ship are trapped. The Enterprise can't help. And this unravels. So a lot kind of happens in this episode that was kicked off by other things earlier in the season. Spock and Chapel have broken up, and Spock is dealing with the destruction of the Cayuga more logically than he did when he thought Chapel had died earlier in the season, when he had his fit of emotion. So we're seeing him control his emotions more logical, like the Spock we get in a few years on the original series. Right before the Gorn attack, Patel is speaking to Pike on a video call, and she asks how he's doing, and he says, well, I haven't burst into song, referencing their musical episode when, the two of them worked out a lot of stuff because they sang their innermost emotions. So we're seeing some of the payoff of that episode. The writers are doing a good job while we have standalone episodes, we have through line ideas or dramas, things that happen affect through, even though we're doing Monster of the Week episodes. And all that's really good. We finally get to see Ortegas go on an away mission, which she's been asking to do. And of course, it can't go well. It doesn't. So I don't want to do a plot by plot, point by point. I don't want to retell the episode. So we end up with a destroyed Cayuga, an Enterprise that's ordered by Starfleet to stay on the Federation side of the new demarcation line proposed by the Gorn. We do meet a young Lieutenant Junior Grade Montgomery Scott, who has figured out how to hide in plain sight in front of the Gorn. And we find out that while he was one of Pella's best students, he received one of her worst grades. We don't know why that is yet, but we do know that she considers him one of her best students. But it's Scotty. And perhaps we saw that Pella is the one that gave him the nickname Scotty. Could be. Maybe I'm reading too much into that, but she is the first person in the timeline that we've heard call him Scotty. So Scotty's going to help on the Enterprise. Maybe this means he's going to sign on board, which is interesting because in the episode last season where Pike visited Pike through time, and we did the Balance of Terror overlay episode, the person from the transporter room had a Scottish accent. So maybe this is where Lieutenant Scott comes on board to then become Chief of Engineering. So they make this big plan, which is a pretty good plan because of what Montgomery Scott thinks and what they've learned themselves. They can manipulate the debris field in orbit around the planet because the Gorn aren't looking for trouble there. And they decide to take the saucer section from the Cayuga and throw it at the planet to hit the thing, the tower that's causing the dampening field. When that knocks out, they'll be able to beam everybody up. And so Spock goes over to rig, he does the spacesuit flight thing. And while he's rigging it to be pushed into its descent, Chapel's on board, and she's the only one alive on board. She sees Spock outside. So she ends up getting into a suit. The two of them battle an adult Gorn. They do manage to escape, and they send the ship. They send the saucer section. And it works. It passes through the atmosphere. The Gorn don't react to it because it's just debris falling. And it hits the place, and the interference field is dropped. Pike gives the order to beam everybody aboard. We see on the ground everybody in one place, and they are in fact transported. What we learn moments later is that it was not the Enterprise that transported them, that the Gorn were ready. They transported them all. So all of the colonists and all of the crew that were on the planet are now on board the Gorn ship. We do have Captain Batel having been rescued and taken to the Enterprise. She is infected with Gorn offspring. There's going to be Gorn hatching from her. So she's placed in a stasis field and hopefully a really good force field. Containment field. That's the word I was looking for. She's placed in a containment field in sickbay. So we have, at the end of the episode, we have a to be continued. Now, I understand that there is a tradition of to be continued in Star Trek and others. However, let's just talk about Star Trek. When the big famous two-parter happened in Star Trek The Next Generation, The Best of Both Worlds Part 1, Riker gives the order to fire on Locutus, and it's to be continued. That happened in June of 1990, and the next season began in September of 1990. So you only had to wait through the summer for the next season to start, and then you could go. You knew when they were ending, you knew when they were starting. There were like 26 episodes per season. Now, in the Best of All Worlds, now, at the end of season 2, there's about a year before the next season of 10 episodes airs. So they knew when they decided to do this that at best, their to be continued was going to take a year before season 3 starts. But this isn't the best of all years. The writers are on strike, so season 3 is not yet being written. The actors are on strike, so if they do manage to get it written, they can't film it. So they're not in production. They have not begun. The process that would have taken them until next year to get the thing is not happening. There's been no movement in the writer's strike or the actor's strike. There's almost been no talks. This is unforgivable. I'm really angry that they chose to do. I don't mind. You want to do a two-parter, do it in the middle of the season. Or go ahead and do it at the end of the season, but actually end the season with the second part. Because I'm not sure I'm going to care in a year or more. So, what do you think? I thought it was a great episode. I thought it was a great season. Right up until they decided not to actually finish anything for us. So here we are. Let me know what you think of this season, how you think you're going to spend the time in the next year waiting for the return of Star Trek Strange New Worlds. And if you think you're still going to be subscribing to Paramount Plus by the time it comes time for season 3. And in this day and age, we don't even know if Paramount's going to want to produce Star Trek Strange New Worlds. We have no guarantee there's going to be a season 3. It's been picked up for season 3. It's been greenlit. But how do we know? So that was a bit of a letdown. Now, it does occur to me that of the crew members that are on board the Gorn ship, I believe the only ones that we see in Star Trek, the original series, is M'Benga. He was in 2 episodes of the original series. Everybody else that was picked up, La'an and Ortegas, they never appear. So if they don't survive this, it doesn't affect the timeline. M'Benga has to survive. And it has occurred to me that if Captain Batel dies, that would affect Pike heading towards his demise at the accident that puts him in the wheelchair. But it also would suggest why he's willing to go back to Talos 4. When Spock steals the Enterprise and kidnaps Pike and takes him back to Talos 4, perhaps it's so that Vina on Talos 4 can be Marie Batel, and the 2 of them can have the life that tragedy took from them. That would be nice. But by the time we get around to telling any of those stories, I will have died of old age. Because there just aren't enough episodes in a season, and there's too much time between the seasons. So that's it for Strange New Worlds Season 2. Give me your thoughts. Let me know what else you're going to be watching. In 2 weeks, we'll begin the coverage of Ahsoka. So stick around for that. For now, I'm Sean. This is Sean's Take. See you next time.